From being on a sheltered farm at the start of the apocalypse, to working with her husband's murderer to find her son, here's the Walking Dead timeline of Maggie and everything leading up to the spin-off. The Walking Dead is one of the biggest universes in the entire world, and it's been giving us gem after gem, from nail-biting suspense and super-moving storylines to some of the best characters in TV history. There's no doubt in my mind that Maggie Rhee's one of the best characters in the show, and if there's anyone who deserves a spin-off, it's her. I mean, just look at her character arc. She started off as a very sheltered little lady, living with her family on a farm, thinking that the dead could be cured. Played by the brilliant British actress Lauren Cohen, she made an impact on the show from her very first appearance. She first showed up in season 2, when the OG group made their way to a secluded farm. She was Maggie Green back then, and argued with her father to keep the group safe, because sending them off the farm would have been a death sentence. Plus, she couldn't really let Glenn go. Played by the uber-talented Steven Yeun, the two had one of the best relationships on the show. It was all sexual tension and flirty looks, no real feelings there. But once they did the deed, they couldn't stay away from each other. They became each other's family, and the group grew. Her father, Herschel's farm, became their safe haven, until it was destroyed in a fire, and the group fled together, looking for a new home under the dictatorship. After she spent an entire winter on the road without a home, she became just as tough as the rest of the group. Her relationship with everyone grew deeper, and when the couple was captured by the governor in season 3, the entire group got together to save them. The governor was one of the best bad guys on the show, and obviously he had to go and take Maggie and Glenn, two of our favorite characters. He tortured them both for the location of their camp, even going as far as threatening to assault Maggie if she didn't betray her group. She didn't say a word until they threatened to kill Glenn. This traumatic event toughened her up even more, and soon enough, Rick came up with a plan to save them and get them out of there, which he did. Once they started getting over the difficult ordeal and a fight with the governor on the horizon, Glenn did the cutest thing ever and proposed to her. They fought the first mega-villain as an engaged couple, but their happiness was short-lived because the bad guy killed her father soon after. At the start of season 4, just to make a point, the Gov horribly decapitated Herschel with Michonne's katana. His new group killed the father figure, the group's longtime moral guide, in the episode Too Far Gone, making it one of the show's best, most devastating episodes. It was a terrible thing to go through for Maggie and her sister Beth, making them realize that it was just the two of them now. Fans will never forget the horrifying look on Maggie's face as she screamed for her dad and shot at the governor's men. She was never the same again, and who would be? After losing a parent in such a terrible way, things didn't get better for the group either, since the attack left the prison uninhabitable. And not only was Maggie separated from Glenn, she was also separated from Beth. Maggie, Sasha, and Bob tried to make it on the road for several episodes, while Glenn and Tara met Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene. Glenn and Maggie finally reunited with each other, and then with the rest of the group, at the cannibal society called Terminus. But since they were all together now, they could do anything. Things were pretty tough from there on out, but they survived. That was until Maggie lost her sister in season 5. At first, she didn't know if she survived or not. After Beth was separated from Daryl, the Archer made it back to the group, but Beth found herself in a hospital with a bunch of cops in charge that wouldn't let her leave. Through a twist of fate, the group learned that Beth was still alive, and Daryl and Carol made their way to the hospital to save her, almost saving her, but then she was shot. Daryl had to carry her body out, and Maggie had to say goodbye to her last living family member. That was the point where she decided that she had to make a stable environment for her remaining family. And that's exactly what she did when she got to Alexandria in season 6. She started to settle down there and made a place for herself in their government with Deanna. She started to help Alexandria with the crops and plans for development. And that's when they found out that she was expecting. This little nugget of news made fans so very happy. But again, as always, our happiness was short-lived, since Maggie and Carol were kidnapped by the Saviors, and they had to fight their way out of it. Things went from bad to worst, like they do on The Walking Dead, because soon enough, she lost Glenn. In season 7, when we finally got to see Negan for the first time, in all his glory, he made such a lasting impression. Maggie was having complications with her pregnancy, and the group was trying to take her to the doctor in Hilltop, but they were stopped at every turn by Negan and his Goonies. They put all of them on the ground, execution style, And just to make a point, to make all of them realize who was the boss, Negan smashed Abraham's head in with Lucille, his barbed wire-wrapped baseball bat. And when Daryl protested, he did the same thing to Glenn. Not gonna lie, every fan of The Walking Dead out there is still super salty about it. With Maggie crying on the ground, Glenn told her that he'd find her while taking his last breaths. That changed everything, not just for Mags, but for everyone else too. It made her live away from the group and stay at Hilltop for the betterment of her baby. Once there, she was gently nudged into a leadership position by Jesus and all the other grateful people of the sanctuary, especially since their current leader, Gregory, was a spineless bastard. During her stay, she helped the community get stronger and used her power to help the settlement fight the Saviors, which the Hilltop and Alexandria did together. She became a fearless leader and helped her people. But the next big fight changed her. After the fight with the Saviors, when she came back to Hilltop, she did something that no one saw coming. In Season 9, she had Gregory executed. He tried to have her murdered, using the grief of some Hilltop parents that had just lost their son. When she caught on and found out who was behind this, she did what any good leader would do: eliminated the threat. She hung him in front of the entire community. It had to be done. Gregory was always betraying everyone at Hilltop, so it was important to make this choice, even though it scared some people. But the big decision took a lot out of her, as well as Rick's presumed death, and she decided to take her son, Herschel Jr., away to build a new community. She eventually came back in Season 10 to help the group fight the Whisperers. She was away for 6 years, and came back when the group needed her the most. But by then, Hilltop had burned down, and Maggie needed to start from scratch again. She could do that, she'd done that before. But what she couldn't get over was the fact that her husband's murderer, Negan, had become a big part of the new community. At first, she was super salty, like the rest of us. But then, in Season 11, a miracle happened. These two finally started to work together. Although it wasn't all smooth sailing, Negan showed his worth in Season 10 by killing Alpha, the leader of the Whisperers. But Maggie still didn't trust him. They started working together to fight the Commonwealth troops, and Maggie told him that she might be starting to trust him after seeing how well he protects her son. And that's what led to a spin-off, officially called The Walking Dead: Dead City. The spin-off focuses on an entirely new villain, who's much worse than anyone fans have ever seen before. His name is the Croat, played by the super talented Zeljko Ivanek. After he attacked Hilltop, he kidnapped Maggie's son and took him to Manhattan. She takes Negan along since he knew the villain before, and together they go through a lot of new challenges to make sure that Herschel Jr. makes his way back home. The show premiered on the 18th of June 2023, and will show how the two unlikely allies get the boy back. So there you have it, The Walking Dead fans. From working with her husband's murderer to find her son, to being on a sheltered farm at the start of the apocalypse, that was The Walking Dead timeline of Maggie and everything leading up to the spin-off.